I was saying, y'all, your boy Rico from StreetScores, and man, oh man, it feels good to finally have two of your really important starting veterans finally reporting to Commanders practice, man. Granted, it is mandatory minicamp, so it seems fairly obvious, but we're still here to dive into and also look at some clips from Marshon Lattimore and Laramie Tunsil finally practicing in the burgundy and gold uniforms this offseason. And then now, though, we have Bobby Wagner missing from practice. Of course, Terry McLaurin is holding out for his contract. We're going to dive into all of that. And at the end, Quinn himself confirmed that Brandon Coleman is moving the guard. We're going to dive into all of that and more, but before we do, I have a fun fact for you that I'm going to give you at the end of this video. But before we get into everything, make sure you stiff on that like button, stiff on the subscription button, and stiff on the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Now that I finally got that Javon Kinlaw video out of the way, I'm going to have a lot more free time to work on other videos and start working on these film sessions that are going to be exclusive to channel members only, so stay tuned for all of that. And without further ado, let's go and dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, and before we move on to anything else, speaking of the Javon Kinlaw video, man, like I already told y'all, I was just doing that purely for the culture, for the love of the sport. I'm not going to make a single penny from that video since I'm actually showing y'all what I'm talking about. If I would have just simply talked about everything and didn't show y'all any clips, didn't actually show you like highlights and all 22 film, I could have made money off the video, but that was like purely like a work of art, honestly. Like I really enjoyed making a video like that, and I may try to do more videos like that, but that's why I typically reserve film sessions for channel members only. I don't monetize any video I put for channel members only because y'all are already paying to be a channel member. But most importantly, the reason I'm talking about this is because my boy Dre, right before I even like put out the video back on Wednesday, he sent a donation directly through the Cash App. Shouts out to you for that. But he even called it. He said, I know that Kinlaw video is on the way. Appreciate the donation. And also, yes, it's finally here. And then also shouts out to my boy Chris Thompson for the big time Cash App donation. He said, strong work on Kinlaw. You the man. Thank you. No, thank you. Again, I did that video purely for the love of the sport, so the donations are like really appreciated, man. So I really appreciate y'all. And now let's go ahead and dive into this video, man. Let's start with Laramie Tunsil. So you have this picture right here with Laramie Tunsil and Bobby Johnson, our offensive lines coach. And I mean, Laramie Tunsil is a big guy, man. I ain't gonna lie, that is a really big human being. Now, granted, we did already see clips of Laramie Tunsil working out on his own with his whatever trainers those were, wherever he was. And more than likely wasn't even in like Ashburn. He was wherever he wanted to be, probably where he's from or something, and was doing stuff by himself. He was clearly the only football player in that clip. It was just a bunch of coaches, regular built, average Joe Schmoes type of guy in the clips. But now we're finally seeing Laramie Tunsil at practice. And when I say he's a big person, I mean, look at him next to Chris Paul, who's known as a really big person as well. Chris Paul is a huge human being in his own right. Look at Laramie Tunsil next to him, man. This is a different type of physical specimen, man. You just can't coach that type of size and athleticism, man. And so then now you also have these clips right here. This is the first look of Laramie Tunsil in a burgundy and gold 78 practice jersey going through drills, man. I'm so happy to see it. And this isn't necessarily our first time seeing it in a burgundy and gold uniform. We're going to discuss that a little bit later, very soon actually, when I show y'all the clip of him being at media days yesterday. But I mean, this guy looks like he's ready to go. He looks in shape. I'm so excited about what he's going to provide for this team. And then you also have this clip right here where he's just kind of warming up and things like that, man. I'm telling you, this guy looks ready. The footwork looks so crisp. Now, granted, it's not like he's blocking against defensive linemen. There's nobody around him in this clip, but it's still amazing to see how smooth he and Josh Connolly is as well when you see those clips that I'm going to put out later on when we're taking a look at, all of the practice clips that came out today from today's mandatory minicamp. Make sure you be on the lookout for that later on tonight, this evening, I'm gonna put out the full run of, you know, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, give y'all the updates on everybody, tight ends, offensive linemen. We literally have updates for everybody except for linebacker and safety. I even have like a special teams update for y'all, so stay tuned for that later. But most importantly, man, this boy Laramie Tunsil looks ready. I love the fact that even though he was doing his own thing, he pulled up to his first Commanders practice clearly in shape. He looks good to go. But like I previously alluded to earlier, as you can see on the screen right now, when the Commanders had their media days for them to take all of their pictures and things like that they're going to use throughout the entire season, for all of the marketing, any like physical pamphlet that you may get, advertisement, is going to come from this media day. First of all, I like the fact that they have Laramie Tunsil with like the purely DC Metro system background. Nobody else has those type of walls in their Metro system. That's very DC unique, and so I like the fact that they had that. But most importantly, this was officially our first time seeing Laramie Tunsil in a real Commanders uniform, not some random jersey swap, photo edit, AI created stuff. This was the first time Laramie Tunsil ever actually wore a Commanders uniform for us to see, for them to take pictures. So I was really happy about that. And with him there at media day yesterday, I felt like we could pretty much assume, yeah, he's going to be there for the start of mandatory minicamp today. Like, I mean, it wasn't like a 100% guarantee, but I was kind of like, okay, he's pretty much reporting. He technically reported yesterday, pulled up to take his pictures, and he should be ready to go tomorrow. And that was great news, of course, but then I immediately started thinking, what about Marshon Lattimore? I didn't see him at any of the media day stuff, and maybe I'll still do like a video showing you all of the different media day clips and pictures that we got from it. So stay tuned for that, because we have some interesting potential jersey update, like a potential spear type of thing. Stay tuned for that. But I immediately was thinking, where's Lattimore? Tunsil pulled up to media days. Lattimore didn't. Where is he at? Does that mean he's not going to pull up to mandatory minicamp tomorrow? Well, as in today? And lo and behold, Buddy was out there. We got some Marshon Lattimore finally pulling up as well, man. And really, honestly, to keep it 1,000 with y'all, man, this was always nothing news. Like, anything that happens, I'm going to report it to y'all. But like I've been telling y'all for the past couple of weeks, man, it would have only have been something to worry about if they started missing mandatory practices, which only started today. We have mandatory minicamp from today through Thursday, the 10th, the 11th, and 12th. If they would have missed those days, now we can start talking, okay, what's actually going on? But like I've told y'all, both of these guys didn't go to voluntary OTAs for their previous teams. That's just not how they get down. So it wasn't even like a contract dispute or anything like that. They just simply don't do voluntary OTAs. Period. Just no matter what team they're on. The reason that this became like somewhat of a big thing is because we were spoiled last year. We had 100% voluntary OTAs participation last year. Like the stuff that we did last week and the weeks before that, we had 100% participation, roll call, all of that type of stuff, attendance last year. So we made a big noise of it in a positive light. Then this season, we only went down to like 90 something percent. And somehow that became a big news in a negative way because of all of the hype and the energy we gave it in a positive way. So I felt like, I guess the mirror image of that, when it's not perfect, now we got to give that equal amount of energy to the opposite way because it's a negative. But it was never really anything that serious. Granted, the Ravens have like half of their starters not reporting to camp. Like Kyle Hamilton and Lamar Jackson, none of those guys are pulling up to voluntary OTAs. And that's just the start. Like, it was like 8 starters not pulling up. At that point, you got to kind of look around like, okay, what's going on here? But for us, man, those guys just simply don't do OTAs. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that 2 guys that we've added since the trade deadline are 2 of the only people that are not pulling up to OTAs. Outside of Terry McLaurin, who's fighting for a contract, Laramie Tunsil was just with the Texans last year, and we traded Marshon Lattimore from the Saints midway last year. Everybody who was here since September of 2024, they get the program. They're all pulling up to as many practices as they possibly can. So maybe it's just like a culture thing. Maybe Laramie Tunsil and Marshon Lattimore, once they're around this team more, they finally get to see what we're really building here. Maybe then they'll be motivated to pull up to voluntary OTAs in the future, like next offseason in 2026. But even if they don't, it's not that serious. They're going to pull up and be in shape and ball out. And Dan Quinn even talked about it before practice even started. He said that cornerback Marshon Lattimore, who was dealing with a hamstring injury last year, a really nagging one, was a full participant going into mandatory minicamp. No restrictions. Let's get it. He said they'll adjust if needed, but that boy is ready. And take a look at him versus rookie, second round corner rookie that really was a first round talent, and Trey Amos and Drills right here. And he looks good. I mean, what hamstring injury? Remember, he had to miss a few games last year because of that. And even when he did play, he never looked like himself. He never looked 100%. He looks good in these clips right here. I'm not going to lie, man. Shouts out to him. And here's another angle of it right here. And Lattimore being in shape is really interesting, because Joe Wood Jr. kind of called him out on that in this press conference last week when addressing the fact that Lattimore hadn't shown up to any of the Commanders' practices this offseason, and basically said something to the extent of, he want to skip practices? Okay, we're going to see how in shape he is when he gets in here. We're going to put him through it to make sure he's on point while he's gone. Like, when he finally pulls up, what were you doing? Because you could have been here getting perfectly in shape, conditioning, all of that stuff, but you wanted to go do other things. All right, we're gonna see if you were able to keep up with us while you were doing your own thing. So I love the fact that Marshon Lattimore answered to the call, answered to the challenge, and pulled up, and did not give the Commanders coaches any reason to doubt his commitment and his physicality, his athleticism, all of that type of stuff. That shows how much of a seasoned veteran he is, because he pulled up prepared, physically, mentally, all of that. When most people who skip OTAs, when they pull up to mandatory minicamps, they do look like they're a step behind. They do look a little winded. And Marshon Lattimore, being the seasoned vet that he is and answering to the call of Joe Wood Jr., and I love the fact that Joe Wood Jr. is willing to call guys out like that. I love the fact that they have that type of relationship and bond to where they're going to hold each other accountable. And Lattimore was like, okay, I'm going to show you in shape. And he pulled up looking pretty good. And shouts out to Dan Quinn. He spoke on Tunsil and Lattimore pulling up to practice. He said both players are doing well, and he's pumped that they're finally here in the building. We all as fans, everybody's excited. This is beautiful, man. I mean, again, it was never really that big of news to begin with, but it is a relief that they're finally here. And then shouts out to Dean Jones of Rico's Rag. He put out an article saying the Commander Star shut down all of the noise with the loudest statement yet. This was a relief. He said the Commanders will benefit greatly from Laramie Tunsil and Marshon Lattimore at mandatory minicamp. Before we even dive into that, I feel like it's really huge. You saw that clip of Lattimore working with Trey Amos, and the same thing goes with Lattimore giving all of the answers to the test to Josh Connolly as well. You know how much quicker they're going to develop as players, being rookies in the NFL, making that jump from college to NFL. You have Laramie Tunsil, perennial Pro Bowler, in your tackle room. You have perennial Pro Bowler Marshon Lattimore in your cornerback room if you're Trey Amos. Those guys taking you under their wings and putting you up on all of the little game nuances that, you know, usually take years to learn. If they could put them on, you know how quickly that will expedite their developments, and they could come out here looking like elite rookies immediately. They could come out here looking like there's no way these guys are rookies. I'm telling you right now. So that's an additional benefit to why Lattimore and Tunsil pulling up as early as possible and pulling up to mandatory minicamps is going to be huge, because now those guys get the tutelage and the coaching that, you know, coaches can tell you one thing, but you have to be a player that's actually doing it. And that's why I love Bobby Wagner in the linebacker room. I feel like Kane Madrano, but especially Jordan McGee, are getting priceless. Like, you can't even put a monetary value to the experience, the coaching, the tutelage, and the advice that they're receiving from Bobby Wagner as a current player. Ken Norton Jr. is an excellent linebackers coach, one of the best in the NFL. Joe Wood Jr., Dan Quinn, elite defensive minds as well. But Bobby Wagner being in your linebacker room while also taking you under his wing is invaluable, man. And so Tunsil's doing the same thing for Connolly, and Lattimore finally pulling up is doing the same thing for Trey Amos. But going back to Dean Jones of Rico's Rag, he said Lattimore and Tunsil caused a stir when they stayed away from the facility over voluntary workouts. So this is a method they've adopted over recent years elsewhere. So it shouldn't come as a great shock. It would have been nice to have them around, but they're here now. That's the main thing. While some thought Lattimore's absence sent the wrong message after his underwhelming campaign with injury complications attached, it's all part of his process. Being around from here on out highlights his commitment to the cause and his eagerness to silence some increasing doubters. Tunsil's presence is equally, if not more, important. There are a lot of moving parts on Washington's offensive line this offseason. Only starting center Tyler Biadasz could be in the same spot week 1 against the New York Giants when that rolls around. So molding this revamped group into a cohesive unit is critical. I love that point. Offensive line talent matters a lot, of course, but this is probably the position group that requires the most chemistry out of any of them. out of the entire sport, man, to make sure that your offensive line has perfect cohesion, communication. They know each other like the back of their hands. They know what each other's thinking. That is so critical with all of the stunts and all of the things you got to deal with from an IQ awareness and strategic standpoint as an offensive lineman. It's not just about your talent, man. Like I've always said, you can throw 5 Pro Bowl offensive linemen out there, but if they have no chemistry, they're not going to look like it. The offensive line with chemistry, even if they're not filled with a bunch of Pro Bowlers, that cohesive offensive line that's been doing it together rep after rep after rep are gonna go out there and perform better than just the 5 Pro Bowlers that just got slapped together that morning. So that's why Laramie Tunsil pulling up as early as possible is gonna be huge, because we need to go ahead and start getting that chemistry together, more specifically with Laramie Tunsil to the guy to the right of him, Brandon Coleman. We're gonna talk about that towards the end of the video. But going back to Dean Jones, he said the former Ole Miss standout is an elite blindside enforcer. That will count for nothing if he isn't on the same page with his new teammates. I agree. Any fans who were restless about Lattimore and Tunsil's no-shows at OTAs lingering any longer should be calm. They are ready to work and meet expectations, and if they perform up to their previous form, the Commanders will be in tremendous shape next season and potentially beyond. That's not the case with McLaurin, with tensions seemingly building, but there's not much to cause panic with that situation either. The time is on the Commanders' side for now. I agree. Now, speaking of Terry McLaurin, moving on, per Adam Schefter, even though we don't need Adam Schefter to report this, we know this as Commanders fans, but Terry McLaurin is skipping mandatory minicamp amid his contract negotiations. Now, of course, the reason I brought up Adam Schefter with the fact that he's reporting it, because this is relatively big news. This is something that like all of the NFL is talking about. You even have these reports about other NFL teams eyeing the situation, and you have all of these trade scenarios going out there, all kinds of stuff. So this is like big news. This isn't just Commanders news. This is NFL-wide news. But at the end of the day, I don't think this is anything that serious. Dan Quinn even addressed it. He said, talking about Terry McLaurin missing practices and does it impact anything on the offense, he said, quote, "The good news is a lot of rapport has already been built. Sometimes football and business intersect. This is just one of those times, and Terry is a fantastic teammate," unquote. He also said that they'll work it out. He has no worries. He's fully confident that this will get handled. Here's 53 seconds of Dan Quinn talking about Terry McLaurin's absence right here.
Offense as a whole down the road as they really build that rapport together.
Sure, and the good news is lots of rapport has been built, and so those are all the times and hours and hours upon doing that. And sometimes football and business they intersect, and this is one of those times. Terry is a fantastic teammate and really puts in the work and spent a lot of time with him already this offseason. So. But that's the business side of things. Adam and their crew and Terry and his group, they'll let them work through that. But in the meantime, lots of stuff to do, and we try to customize as much as we can, Nikki. Who can do what? Who's in rehab? Who can do some things? Who can do everything? Who needs to see more during this time of year, and who do we need to see less? And so this is one of those times you're really able to customize the script and the work to do that.
And shouts out to Josh Norris, because after this news came out, he wanted to point out this stat that Terry McLaurin's opening 5 seasons, he had 11 red zone touchdowns combined. Terry McLaurin in 2024, 10 red zone touchdowns combined. He was one less than his previous 5 seasons combined. But I want to point out the fact that that's a lot to do with the quarterback that he's finally playing with. But the reason I bring up that stat is because he had 10 red zone touchdowns last year, which means he is an important piece of this offense. Now, shouts out to Scott Jennings of Hogs Haven for saying the Washington Commanders are in Ashburn, Virginia for this year's mandatory minicamp. This will be the last time the entire team and coaching staff is together until the start of training camp next month. Terry McLaurin isn't there as he is negotiating for a new deal. Head coach Dan Quinn addressed that and other issues heading into today's practice as he spoke to the media. He said sometimes football and business intersect, and this is one of those times. He's confident that it will be resolved by general manager Adam Peters, and said that he spent time with the team this offseason already. I feel like that's a good point too. Terry McLaurin's been there practicing. He was there for phase 1 and half of phase 2. Then he just missed the second half of phase 2. And then he missed the entire phase 3 last week. And then so far, he's not pulling up to mandatory mini camps right now. But it's not like he's just completely disgruntled like Trey Hendrickson, who hasn't shown up to anything. Speaking of the Bengals, right now, they have a rookie in Shamar Stewart holding out as well. Their edge rusher contract situations are awful right now. They already had a bunch of guys retire and leave the team. Now, the only edge rushers you do have, you just drafted one in the first round. He doesn't want to show up. And then Trey Hendrickson as well. So this whole Terry McLaurin situation, I know a lot of people are trying to make it something big, but it's nowhere near as big as even what's going on with the Bengals at all. Not even close. But McLaurin skipped the last 2 phases of OTAs along with fellow veterans Laramie Tunsil and Marshon Lattimore. They are at today's practice, and Quinn said it was good to meet Tunsil's family to get to know his new look left tackle's family. That was pretty cool that Laramie Tunsil's family even pulled up. I love that. And then Lattimore doesn't have any restrictions going into minicamp like we talked about earlier, which is good news after he dealt with the hamstring injury, which kept him sidelined for multiple games last season. So if we're finally getting officially a fully healthy Marshon Lattimore, oh, it's up. It's up. But going back to Terry McLaurin, I agree with Disco. He said Terry McLaurin is the ultimate professional. His deal will get done. He will show up and be in shape. He has earned this. I completely agree. And then also shouts out to Steven Wino, talking about Terry McLaurin missing minicamp as well. He said, this is part of the negotiation process. The time I would worry is if you haven't heard from Terry McLaurin by late July at the start of training camp. But as far as early June, nothing to worry about. Even though it is technically mandatory minicamp, nothing to worry about yet. You only start to really even slightly worry at the beginning of training camp and he's still not pulling up. Now, moving on, what happened to Bobby Wagner? You know, we finally trade in. We get Lattimore and Laramie Tunsil. We have to sacrifice Bobby Wagner to get them. And of course, Terry McLaurin still hasn't pulled up. But I mean, it's pretty much like if you're talking about since a few weeks ago, we traded Terry and Wagner for Laramie Tunsil and Marshon Lattimore. Why can't we just get everybody to participate at the same time? But Bobby Wagner, he's not holding out. This is a very random situation. We don't know what it is. I hope it's good news and not bad news. But either way, his attendance at Commanders minicamp practice today was excused for a personal reason. And reporters, multiple of them, have reported and confirmed that he will be there tomorrow. He just had to miss today for whatever reason, whatever happened. Bobby Wagner had to miss for personal reasons. Again, I hope it's really good news. I hope it's not bad news. And so shouts out to Bobby Wagner. But then now also moving on to Brandon Coleman, Dan Quinn went ahead and confirmed that Brandon Coleman is in fact moving to guard. In his press conference at practice today, he said the move inside, he was ready to begin early. He's a rare guy that has the width and bulk to play inside and the athleticism to play outside. That's why he's such a unique talent. This guy can play both. Like I've been saying for months now, I think he could be a really good tackle. I just think he can be a better guard. That's why when I kept mocking, I mocked Josh Connolly to us like twice, even though that wasn't like my final prediction. I didn't actually expect it to happen. But in my mock drafts, when I gave us Josh Connolly, I kept saying move Brandon Coleman to left guard. That's where his highest ceiling is. I think he has Pro Bowl, maybe even all pro potential at guard. Like I'm thinking Brandon Sheriff, maybe even slightly more athletic at guard. Like I'm really that high on Brandon Coleman. I think he could be a really good tackle. He did an excellent job against the NFL's leading sack guy last year in Trey Hendrickson when we played the Bengals in week 3. But ultimately, man, I think his calling is guard. I think he's going to ball out at guard. And that's why it made so much sense to go ahead and get Josh Connolly at right tackle, even after you already traded for Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, which means both of your tackle spots are taken up. But you're not just going to throw away this elite 3rd round ceiling of a talent in Brandon Coleman. He's going to start at a different position. That's left guard. And Dan Quinn already said in his press conference that Brandon Coleman is doing an excellent job of adjusting. But you got to remember, this guy played a lot of guard at TCU in college before he even got to the NFL. So he has plenty. I think he played more guard than tackle in college. So I don't even think it's going to be that much of an adjustment period, but it's still going to be a little weird going from being literally only a tackle all last year to moving to guard. I mean, since he's been in the NFL, he's only been a tackle. Granted, he did have a lot of guard experience in college, but NFL-wise, he's been purely a tackle. So that I can see why that may take some time, but at the end of the day, I'm not expecting it to be anything crazy for him to have too many bumps in the road, too many obstacles to overcome, because again, he's more naturally a guard anyway, just physically. I think he was literally born to play guard at an extremely high level, and he has a lot of experience of it doing it in college. And then also Dan Quinn, while speaking to the media, he continued to emphasize the communication in all 3 phases is very important for this team. He wants to hear it and feel it on the field. So he wants people loud, man. The cornerbacks, the DBs, the linebackers, even the defensive line, the offensive line, wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, of course, course, everybody, tight ends, he wants everybody communicating very loudly, even the special teams guys, the returners, the guys that are going down there to make the tackles, everybody. He's really trying to emphasize why communication is so key and why it's going to play a large role in our success this upcoming season. He did that last year, and you saw what happened, us going from 4 wins to 14, including the 2 in the playoffs. And I think communication does play a large role, especially when you have so many new pieces as well. A lot of that stuff that I talked about with the offensive line, you're throwing a whole bunch of new pieces out there. Hey, getting that communication going is going to be huge for how easily Trey Amos can just squeeze right into our defensive back room with Jonathan Jones and Will Harris. Like, those guys will be able to expedite that process of getting to know each other and gaining that chemistry if they communicate often and loud. Same thing with the offensive line, same thing with wide receiver with Deebo Samuel and those guys. So that's your best shot of not making it look like we're a very new team going into week 1, which we are. We have a lot of new pieces this year compared to what we had last year, but hey, you do all of that communicating the way that Dan Quinn wants them to, they can go out there week 1 looking like Deebo Samuel, Laramie Tunsil, and Lattimore have been on this team for years, and I'm excited. And including the rookies as well. Josh Connolly, Trey Mose, my boy JCM. I can't wait to talk about him later in my video showing y'all the highlights, man. 60-yard run? Come on, man. Be on the lookout for that later. But either way, Brandon Coleman even spoke on this whole transition to guard and things like that. He said, quote, "To be honest, I don't really care where I play. Wherever they need me at is where I'll work into," unquote. And I mean, that's the answer you literally want. That's the answer that you expect. No matter where they want him to be, he's going to be there. He doesn't necessarily have to go out there and confirm, yes, I'm a left guard or anything like that. He could just be him and be like, hey, wherever they put me, I'm a ball. I love that answer. And if you wanted to see this 1-minute and 3-second clip, here you go right here.
No longer a rookie, how much more comfortable do you feel from year 1 to year 2?
Pretty good. I mean, you kind of know what's coming. You're expecting a lot of different things. So preparation for these OTAs and this mini camp was pretty cool. Like, I know what I need. I know what I got to kind of work in, where I got to get better at to be able to perform out here. You know,
what is the plan for you? Obviously, you played tackle last year. Do you feel like you're going to kick inside to guard? What are you more comfortable with? What do you want?
Yeah, I mean, right now I've been working a lot of guard. I mean, to be honest, I don't really care where I play. Wherever they need me at is where I'll work into, and like show that I can play that position. So like I said, right now I'm inside, and I'm learning to get comfortable there, having those tackles. Obviously, playing tackle helps me a lot to understand different perspectives. Understand the game a lot better.
Were you surprised they drafted Connerly?
No, I mean, I really don't pay that much. I don't put that much into it. Obviously, I'm always excited to add a piece like that. Someone that is that athletic. I was excited just because it's always good to have someone else in the room who's that athletic, can play. He's obviously really smart. Has done a great job so far, and I'm just excited to see what he does in training camp.
But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. If you made it this far in the video, salute to you, man. Make sure you leave a like on the way out. And as promised, I have a fun fact for you. Reserve defensive back Mike Nelms made his mark as a return man during his 5 seasons in Washington from 1980 to 1984. He made the Pro Bowl each of his first 3 seasons in the nation's capital, then was a first-team All-Pro selection in 1983. Random fun fact, man. Shouts out to all of y'all that was able at least to be alive to experience Mike Nelms. I was not there to see it, but I have gone back and watched a little bit of him, so I'm hip to him a little bit, but I didn't see it live. So shouts out to those of y'all who got to experience that live, man. Big shouts out to y'all again. Shouts out to y'all for even making it this far in the video. Make sure you leave a like on the way out, and of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about all of this. Laramie Tunsil finally pulling up. Marshon Lattimore finally pulling up. Terry McLaurin still not pulling up. Bobby Wagner suddenly not pulling up, even though it's for an excused reason. And Brandon Coleman officially confirmed by Dan Quinn moving to left guard. I've already told y'all that this would happen months ago, and then for the past week and a half, we've been seeing clips of him practicing at left guard, but now you have an official confirmation from the head coach himself. Let me know how you feel about all of that. Again, make sure you leave a like on the way out. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Appreciate y'all. Stay tuned for a video later on this evening tonight with all of the practice clips and analysis that happened today. I got y'all running back, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, literally every position but linebacker and safety. That's it. We have something to talk about for every other position and clips to show you all of that. So stay tuned. Really appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.